everyone, I'm Arlene Dickinson. Thanks for joining me on my podcast.
It's no secret that small business is a big deal for TELUS. Earlier this year, TELUS helped make things better for small businesses through their pledge to stand with owners. In continuing their support for owners across Canada, they are excited to introduce the Owner's Advantage Plan, an exclusive mobility plan tailored to help business owners stay connected to their family, business, and community. The Owner's Advantage Plan offers a wide variety of benefits designed to provide greater value and more flexibility than ever before, including yearly device upgrades, endless data, same-day device repair, and access to on-demand virtual healthcare, all on the world's fastest mobile network in the world. Visit TELUS.com/ownersadvantage.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Reinvention. Today, Arlene chats with Daniel Mazzone, a visual artist that's been gaining quite a bit of popularity recently. Now known for his recognizable pop art style, Daniel's journey hasn't always been picture perfect. After a falling out with his mother at the age of 15, he found himself living on the streets of Toronto. An endless cycle of drug use, drinking, and couch surfing became his routine for 5 years. Until one day he had a moment of clarity and realized that the life he was leading wasn't the one he wanted to be defined by. Set on rewriting his story, Daniel made amends with his mom, finished high school, and found himself a job. But while that gave him the stability he sought, it didn't give him the happiness he craved. Spending the majority of his time creating art, one day Daniel's friend asked to display one of his pieces at a restaurant that he worked at. A short time later, Daniel got a call that the piece was sold for $15,000. And that began his journey of reinvention.
Welcome to the episode with Daniel Mazzone. Daniel is a good friend who is such an accomplished artist and now furniture maker and jewelry designer. And I mean, Daniel, your life has just been such an explosion of reinvention. And I think you're a perfect example of what happens when you kind of establish yourself in a way that allows you to expand your horizons. You know, I think part of what reinvention is all about is figuring out what your core is all about and then allowing yourself to take that in new places. So maybe we can start today though, first of all, by saying thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, as well. Thank you.
And then talk a little bit about your background, because I don't think everybody knows your story. So maybe you can just give us a quick kind of, how did Daniel Mazzone come to be, and what's his life story about?
Well, I think as a child, I did artwork with my mom, as you know, and so I had a great passion for it as a kid. And I always dreamed of being an artist, but I had, sort of, even my mom being an artist, I had the old school parents where it was. I think being an artist wasn't a great choice. Life choice, just because the idea of being an artist and you'd be starving and you couldn't make any money. And so I think I didn't really follow that. Well, that was part of it, and then troubles at home, and as you know, I was homeless from 15 to 20. So I'd stopped doing artwork for. I mean, it's not something you think about when you're living on the street. It's more of survival mode. And once I sort of the last year I was on the street, I just figured that, this couldn't be the story of my life. There was more to it. That there had to be more to it than what I was doing. So I got help, and I got off the street, and, I got a job, and I finished high school when I was 22 because I'd left home at 15. So I dropped out. And, my initial thoughts were not getting back to artwork, because that wasn't a career choice. It was something I just did because I loved it. So I started working at restaurants, and I thought that being surrounded by, the restaurant I went to, it was surrounded by stockbrokers and and wealthy people, and I thought, wow, these people sure look happy. I mean, who wouldn't be happy at dinner? So I thought money was what would make you happy. So I thought I had asked Michael Weckerly, as you know, if I could work for him, and he told me the courses I needed, and I went to Ryerson and took business courses, and I got my Series 69, and I was volunteering on the trading floor, and and I honestly hated every minute of it. But I did it. I finished all my courses because I was also brought up in a way that it didn't matter what you did, you always gave 110%, even if it wasn't something you loved. So I still did well, and I still passed my courses, even though I hated all of it. Then I think I got to a point where I just wishing for Friday to come and anxiety on Sunday because Monday was work. So really the sad part of it was is a lot of people go through this, and you're actually wishing for 80% of your life to disappear Monday to Friday. You don't want it to exist. You're living for the weekend. So I thought, wouldn't it be nice if maybe we can't all have a job that we love, but maybe we can find something we love to do every day. So I started doing artwork again, and it was not to sell it. It was not to make a career out of it. I mean, I didn't think anybody would even like it, to be honest. But I was so excited at work to get home, so I could do artwork. So it made my days at work so much easier. So I enjoyed my life. And then, a friend of mine had put it up in a restaurant, one of my pieces, and it sold for an amount of money that was, kind of validated that maybe this is something I could do, and it just sort of took off from there.
I mean, I love that. That's a great abridged version of what's taken you here, and thanks for sharing that. But let's just start at you said a couple things. Your child growing up, your mom's an artist, there's some dysfunction in your family, which, hey, we all have dysfunction in our families. But at 15 you go out on the streets.
Yeah. Not easy.
No, like, was there something going on in your life that like took you there? Were you kicked out of your home? Were you?
Well, it was just it was an abusive, a little bit of an abusive home, and I didn't really have the option. I was told to leave because I was old enough. So my father had left when we were kids too. So the police were there, and they said you have two options: you can go live with your father, or you can figure it out. And I had never really known my father or him to be a nice person, so I just said that's fine, I'll figure it out. And I stayed at friends' houses for like maybe a couple months, and that got old real quick. And I remember one night someone said, "Hey, do you want to go to this party in the city?" And I said, "Sure." And I just met the guy, and he brought me to this party, and we stayed up all night. And I said, "I'm kind of tired. Can we go to your place?" And he says, "Well, I don't live anywhere." I never forget this guy, Brian Barry. I wish I would see him again. And he says, "Well, I don't live anywhere." And I said, "What do you mean you don't live anywhere?" He's like, "This is what I do. I just go to a party and I figure it out from there." And it was like I didn't realize there was all the people we were. There's a whole culture of kids that did this.
Really?
Yeah, it was nuts. There were like 30, 40 people I knew on the street, and this is all they did. They went to There's a rave scene in the 90s, and they would go to these parties all night because they didn't have to sleep outside. So you would go there and then just kind of go to someone's house, and then when you were tired, maybe you would sleep in the park, or sometimes I would sleep in movie theaters. There were $2 to get in, so I would go to different theaters, subway trains. Sometimes in the mall bathrooms, I would like sit on the toilet with my head on my lap and just sleep, just to have some sort of privacy where people wouldn't bother you. Someone would always knock and
always kick you out of there.
always really had to go. So I don't know. Yeah, it was there was a whole culture of it, and it went on for 5 years. I did that.
And I mean, that's like an enormous amount of time, especially at one of the most formative years of your life. When you're, I think for any teenager, like when you're 18 or 19 years old, you're really starting to kind of figure out who you are as a person, and you've got hormones racing through your body, and you're exposed to the rave scene and everything you described to me. I mean, I can't imagine that there weren't a lot of drugs and drinking.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. There's, you know, this is what you do. You try to mask your depression and your sadness with drugs, and then it ends up being a daily thing, and then it ends up being something you need every day, and then it just destroys your life even more. And then, towards the end, I would say the last year was, that's when you go like, okay, wow, this is, can't believe it took me 5 years, but this can't be my story. And then, I ended up having a heart attack and going to the hospital, ODing from drugs. And yeah, I just had called my mom after 5 years and said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to die if I stay on the street. Do you mind if I come home?" Of course, she let me come home. The situation was better. So I went home, and I just realized that I had, she thought that I had a drug problem, which I did. And she says, "If you come home, you got to go to rehab." I said, "Okay, I'll go to rehab." And I remember she took me to this rehab. It was up north. And they drop you off with no wallet, no money, no phone, nothing. And I went in there for 10 minutes. And I saw, not that the people are bad there, but I just said, I don't think I'm going to get better at this place. Like, these people are not motivating to me. I wanted to be around stuff that I thought, I didn't want to be around anything negative. So I walked home. I remember I walked for about 16 or 17 hours. I walked in the morning and it was nighttime. And I remember I'd finally got to, I'd lived in Richmond Hill, and I got to Canada's Wonderland. And I remember saying, "Man, I wish I had a little bit of money. I would just, because I could just take a taxi." And I found $20 in the ditch.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, this is a good turn. I took a taxi home, and I just told my mom that I would quit on my own. And she gave me the chance. I just realized that I was doing these things as a Band-Aid, and I had an addictive personality. So it was not that I was really doing them for the enjoyment. It was just a Band-Aid. So I just found addictive things to be positive things to be addicted to. So I started working out 7 days a week and eating healthy. And I didn't hang out with anybody who did any of that stuff. And I stopped drinking, and I stopped smoking, and I just cold turkey with everything. And I really focused on it. So then from then on, I just, then I started doing the school, and I would be obsessed with like succeeding and becoming a better person, and not doing anything negative.
So at 22 years old, you're going back to high school,
Right.
which must have, well, actually, there's a couple things I want to unpack there. It's not easy to quit an addiction on your own, especially to quit cold turkey like that. For the people who are listening, what would you tell them? Like, what would you say now to your younger self about that? Would you say to walk home and do it the way you did? Would you say, hey, no, maybe you get some help? Like, what? I mean, probably the truth is somewhere in between. It could be all of those things. I'm sure you always need help. You had your mom and your family support, but
Yeah.
what would you say to kids are going through?
Well, I think something I would definitely say is, I think one thing that the only reason I did all of it was, you have to just understand where, life is short, and is it worth it? Is it worth it to you? Is this going to be your story? And that's what motivated me to become something different. I mean, obviously, we don't imagine ourselves being homeless and being on drugs and in the situation we're in. So you have to get to a point where you have to realize that your life's worth something more, and everybody has the ability to become something great. I think we're all given a gift. We don't all open it.
So I hear what you're saying about, like, is this going to be your story? And I think that's a perfect thing about reinventing yourself, is you actually have to stop and say, am I actually doing what I want to do? And do I need to change what I'm going to do in order to be who I want to be? And sometimes it's about saying that out loud. So in your case, it sounds like you really got yourself, like, did you have to hit rock bottom in order to figure out how you wanted to reinvent yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think being that age too, it's just like you get caught up in everything that's going on, and time really just blows by. I mean, that's the problem with being 15 as well. I think as a teenager, you think like, oh, I'm a superhero, and life is so long, and I have time. But the years go by, and as you know, they blow by even more when you're older. And yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of what you want out of life. And like I said, I think everybody's. I mean, it doesn't have to be something extraordinary. I think we all have a gift. We just have to open it. And if you find that gift, and have the the courage to really move forward. And I think a lot of people are discouraged by, oh, this is just my life, and this is just how it goes, and this is how it's always been. But that's not really the case. I mean, it's just life is what you make of it, really.
Yeah. Um, Shakespeare has a line. I'm going to butcher it, but it's about our destiny isn't in the stars. Our destiny is in ourselves.
Exactly.
And, you know, some people think it's fate or it's, hey, it's just what's going to happen to my life. But reinventing yourself and changing your course of your life really is dependent on you having
Right.
the courage and the ability to say, I can do this. And,
Yeah.
but too often in life, aren't we kind of pushed down and said, you know, we don't have it in us, or, you know, you're not good enough, or you shouldn't, why do you think you could do that? Who told you could do that? You shouldn't do that. You should do this. And we get kind of narrowed into this belief that we're not capable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, listen. I even as a kid, as you know, how many adventures and businesses have you tried? And people go, "Oh, that's really hard," or "Oh, no, that market's really tough." Yeah, I mean, they're all tough. I mean,
yeah.
art is tough. Everything is tough. There's always going to be people that discourage you. It's a matter of not listening to them, because there are always going to be people that try. You know, I think a lot of the time it's people that are not doing something they love, and what they're going to try and do is, you know, keep you down where they are, because a lot of times people don't. It sounds bad, but I think people don't want to see you succeed, and I think you just have to. I think you do it for yourself. I don't really do it for other people. I do it to see, because I know I'm capable of doing something, and I invest in myself. You know, and that's kind of why I got into the other things I'm doing. You know, I said, well, it's great. You know, you're doing well, but how do I invest in other people's businesses, and what should I do? And I mean, kind of like what you do. And I thought, well, I'm capable of doing different things. Why not I just invest more in myself in other areas? You know, so I think you
Yeah.
believe yourself.
I think that whole notion of, you know, people always say, well, if you had money to invest in, what would you invest in? I always say, invest in yourself. Like the
Oh,
first dollar you should bet is on you. You know, like making sure that you're putting your effort towards, you know, being the best you can be. And then you get to bet on other people. But if you can't bet on yourself, then who is going to bet on you? Like it's got to start with you believing that you can do something. And so, you know, people who want to get rich schemes, or they want to be successful because somebody else worked hard, that's not wealth. That's 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 a ridiculous notion. As you just said, you know, you've got to believe that you can do these things, because that's the fulfillment you get in life. And I do think that a lot of people miss that notion. That, and it's easy to say because we are fortunate enough to have enough money to be not worried about money. But when you are in a place, you've been homeless, I've been flat ass broke, we've both been in places where we've had nothing. And I think it gives you a different perspective on the value of money, not because it can buy you things, but because it gives you freedom to be able um, to not have somebody tell you and control your life.
right.
And that's to me the important part, right?
And it can also disappear
Yes, so quickly.
so quickly. I mean, sometimes it's harder to maintain wealth than to make it. Sometimes, because there's just like, oh, yeah, obviously, you know, I mean, it's just there are a lot more things going on.
Yeah, well, you can there's a lot of people trying to take your wealth away from you. When you talk about what you did relative to, you know, like you go back to school, you take a securities course, you start trading, you hate it. Um, you then have this art project that you're doing on the side just to keep yourself happy because you hate your day job, which I think is where a lot of people find, by the way, kind of what they really are doing what they love, but they just don't have the courage to say that's what I'm going to do full time, because they can't see how they can make a
Yeah,
living at it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're doing it because it's keeping you happy, but did you imagine that you could make a living at it? And if that first picture hadn't sold?
You know, I actually, I would just kept making them. I didn't think it was going to be a career. I didn't. I mean, I think I still in my head thought that, you know, you can't make money as an artist. So these people sort of validated it for me. But the difference is you know, so that they bought my painting on a Sunday, and I remember on my way to meet the people, I quit my. I was working at a mortgage office at this point because the market had crashed, so I wasn't at the.
Yeah.
And I quit my job on that Sunday because I knew if I had gone to work on Monday, I may have gotten comfortable with a check. So I wanted to put myself in a
Mm.
situation where I had to really put myself out there. So I quit my job. I remember telling my boss that I would try it out for a year and call her back. And She said, yeah, don't bother calling me. She was so mad at me. I quit on her on Sunday, so she wasn't so super impressed. So I was stressed out. I cleared out everything in my apartment. I lived in a basement apartment. I got rid of all the furniture. I turned the whole place into a studio.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a bed and
Just a bed and then workstations. I got rid
so
of everything. TV, because I didn't want to sit there and watch movies. Nothing. It was like music and artwork.
So when you think about that, talking about investing in yourself and the need to be able to do that when you want to, kind of change your life's path, you took your first check that you got from your first picture that you sold, which was a good amount, because I happen to know that you made a good amount of money on it, but not like, it wasn't a fortune.
Yeah, yeah.
And you took every dollar of that and reinvested it into yourself. In this,
these people validated that my art was good enough to sell at a point where you could make a career out of it. And I didn't have a job anymore, so I said, "Wow, I got this money. I might as well." I just really pictured myself as, okay, I could do this.
How much did you make on the first picture? What'd you sell for? How much?
15,000, and I would have
$15,000. It's crazy.
Like I thought. I remember him. I remember him calling me. So he'd come. This is a restaurant I used to work at, and he said, "Oh, these are really nice at my house." And he says, "Do you mind if I sell them?" I said, "I don't think people will like them." And he says, "Oh yeah, let me just take one." And so he took one, and he called me a few days later. I was watching TV, and he says, "Oh hey, I sold your artwork." And I said, exact words. I said, "Dude, I told you not to sell my paint." And he said, swear, he says, "Don't be a bitch. There's $15,000 here for you." And I said, "I'll never. I could sell it. I could sell it 10 shows. I'll never have the same feeling."
Yeah.
And I went, "I'll see you in 10 minutes." No, I'm
Let me get that $15,000. Well, how old were you?
No,
How
it was
old were,
like the validation. It was like, wow, someone really, paid this much money for my artwork. Wow, maybe this is what I should do. And I literally 10 minutes later quit my job.
it makes me think of when Sally Fields was accepting her Oscar and she said, "You like me, you really like me," like as if she needed to be told that somebody liked her, but she did. Because we all need validation. We all need somebody to say, and even though we shouldn't, and you said something earlier that I want to circle back on, which was, people don't want to see you fail as much as they can't, that they can't really bear your success. It's not that they want you to fail, they just don't want you to be successful, because then that puts a spotlight back on themselves to say, why didn't I do those things? I should have tried those things. And that's where regret comes from. People thinking, I regret that I didn't push like Daniel's pushed, or other people that I've spoken to on the show have pushed. So I think it's more that. How old were you when you sold that painting?
30.
30.
10 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just like last year.
Yeah, I wish. So kind. No, yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah.
And tell me, so in 10 years, you just said that feeling, that first painting you sold, nothing, no matter if you sold a show today, it doesn't replace that first painting you sold.
And I think that's why I also try and push myself to like make better artwork and do different things. I think just like drugs, it's like you're chasing this first. It's a high that you got off something you're doing. So it's something positive.
When you create your art now, Daniel, do you ever have a concern that people aren't going to like it? Are you constantly still seeking that validation? Like, do you worry, am I going to be able to sell this? Is anyone going to like this? Am I still relevant? Like, what do artists go through in terms of that anxiety about what they're creating?
I never. I used to, actually. The first couple of years, I think I made artwork to please people. What are people going to like? Oh, are people going to like this? And I just. It's not that I don't think about that now. I think I just do what I want to do, and I think it's about pleasing myself now more than anything.
Yeah.
And in doing that, I actually create better artwork. Because I think when you're trying to please other people, you also put up walls, and what
Yeah.
you do and expanding yourself, because you're always, I think you're afraid to really push the limits and the envelope. And there's actually a saying from Andy Warhol. I don't remember the exact words, but it's about make artwork, and if people don't like it, just keep making more artwork. See, because you know why? Okay, yeah, people buy my artwork, but not everybody loves it. I mean, it's not for everybody. So someone's always going to have something to say. It's just about doing it for yourself. There's always
Isn't
going to be
that
someone. Yeah.
isn't that life though? Isn't life just about, like people, especially if you're a people pleaser? I always say to people who spend their life trying to please others, you'll never find happiness in that, because you're never going to be able to keep everybody happy, because everyone's always going to have different expectations of you. You've got to start with pleasing yourself, and you can't be who you want to be and be all you can be if you don't start with thinking about who you are. Like, what is it that makes you happy? And we lose sight of that. I mean, and I've noticed in your artwork, Daniel, like in the last little while, it's really evolved. Like, I've really noticed that when you talk about expressing yourself, like the painting you did where the lady was screaming because of the pandemic, and the one with the woman by the water that you had with her back, like and the piece even behind you, like I feel like you're creating things.
The child and the dinosaur.
Oh, well, yeah. That's beautiful. Like, see, I just think that's, to me, so you're really starting to get out of not just doing famous people, but you're actually starting to talk about what you see.
Yeah.
And because most of your art prior was about, famous figures, right?
Right.
And you seem to have moved past that into this expression of what you're feeling.
Section where I was trying to please other people. What do people like? So but there was also the part of me being able to tell the story of these people that I admired as well. But so now it's actually kind of great, because if people want stuff like that, I'm still happy to make things like that. But now they also see, other things that I'm making. Like I'm doing this one here, actually. This is to show the AGO. It's a 14-foot piece. I don't know if you can't really see it in the camera, but
Yeah.
it's a whole scene of different children wearing capes, and some are wearing helmets and spacesuits, and it's just about children being the future of the world, and and how there's so many things getting in their way, and standing in the face of their dreams. So in the corner, there's actually a guy painting over their dreams. You can see there's a white section. It's actually a guy in a suit rolling over, and that's because the whole thing is supposed to be a dream.
Oh, well, I actually love the metaphor of that I'm not sure if that's what you're trying to say, but I love the metaphor of how adults can tamper children's dreams just by telling them what they should expect to be, and forcing them into lives that aren't exactly what they want. But, parents saying, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor, you should be
This is what that is, yeah.
I love that. I love that idea. And you in particular, you've experienced that. You've gone from reinventing yourself as a kid on the street to to a stockbroker to an artist, and now you've expanded your art into other expressions. So your art was paintings and pictures. What have you moved into now? How are you reinventing yourself now?
Well, when the pandemic had started, I mean, I was a little bit discouraged, because I love doing the shows. I love doing Art Basel, and I love putting art shows together, because it's kind of like a celebration of things you're working on, and again, validation too. What do people think of the thoughts you've had over the last year? So I was busy with commissions, and I thought, well, maybe the shows are a lot of work to put together, and I said, well, I mean, not that I have a lot of extra time, but maybe I've always wanted to design furniture. So I started drawing furniture, and I took a flight to Italy, and I met up with Menotti. Do you know Menotti? They make furniture.
No,
It's like Italian. They're like, well, top 5 furniture companies in the world. I didn't think they would talk to me.
well, I don't know them. IKEA, I know. Sorry.
No, this stuff's and the designs and the way they put things together are incredible. I actually went to Milan to meet with them in the middle of the pandemic. I showed them my designs, and they loved it. And I asked them if they would manufacture my furniture, and now they've agreed to. So yeah, I have this whole line of furniture coming out, and I'm really excited about it. And
What have you made? Like chairs and couch? Like, do you have any pictures you can share with us?
Have you
What's
seen?
that? No, can you share it? Can you show us?
Yeah, I can. Here. Wow. I
Here,
thought,
iPhone to Zoom. We're gonna.
yeah, I'm gonna do it right now. Let's see here. At the end of the day, you just go like, hey, what do I have to lose? It either works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, you try something
Exactly.
else.
It was
Yeah.
just a trip to Milan, which wasn't so bad. How did you fly to Milan? Anyway, that's a whole other story
I didn't
about how you
fly
got to
there. I
Milan.
flew on a 787 with 10 people.
Really?
You couldn't see the other people on the plane. It,
Wow.
yeah, it was nuts. Nobody was. I was in Venice as well. I went to Murano because I'm building chandeliers out of. So you see my florals. So
Mm-mm.
I have some florals that I do. So we're recreating my flowers in glass, so it looks like an explosion of flowers in the sky.
Oh
And they're
wow.
going to put my furniture and chandeliers in the Milan Design Show in September.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when is it for sale? When does it come for sale?
It'll be for sale in the next couple months. Well, they're making everything now. Hold on, I'm just getting to.
And then, so while you're looking for that, you went and did furniture, and then you also are doing jewelry. Are you not?
Jewelry, yeah, with the sapphires. It's really nice. It'll be done in actually 2 weeks. I made
Yeah.
a diamond pendant out of Mayumi, the sculpture.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
cool.
Let's see if we can see. Can you see it here?
Let's see if we can see.
Okay, so this is my design,
Yeah.
and then this is the table.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
they get,
Beautiful.
yeah. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
And then I'll show you there's different tables, and then those are the different marbles you can have with it, and then these are my chairs.
Oh, I love the chairs. They're fantastic. So they've all got that same kind of floral. Oh, those are fabulous. That's
This
fabulous.
this is
Oh,
for 2 people, so that'll be the back of the chair.
oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah, so
Love it.
doing wallpaper, but I even made my own. I designed my own fabrics to go on the sofas. It's a lot of fun.
And so and the jewelry, you're making rings and pendants and
Yeah, the jewelry I was doing a few pieces to do with them, see how they do. I don't think I was trying to turn that into any big thing. I think I'm really focusing on more the furniture.
yeah.
That was to do a few pieces and see how it goes. But the furniture is something I'd really like to turn into something. And eventually, I love design and architecture. Eventually, what I would love to do is just create my own company where I would design a house for someone, design the house, what it looks like, and then everything that goes in it, from art to everything that goes inside. And it better go well. It's pretty expensive to put this together.
I was gonna say, so talking about investing in yourself, you're investing in yourself big time right now.
Yeah. Thankfully, people that have bought artwork for me before, I already, sold 2 sofas, a dining room set, and so I'm just using the money from that to create all the other stuff. So it's working out so far. I'm just trying to figure out how to grow it into something. I've never done something like this, so I'm trying to figure out how do I turn it into a bigger company that it is, because I know that I can sell to clients and have it at shows, and sure I can sell like 10 20 sofas and whatever. How do I grow it into a big brand? And I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, luxury brands are I mean, you think about Vuitton or Hermes or any of the luxury brands in the world, they all started with an iconic few pieces, and then they grew into, major brands that sold a variety of items that were all luxury. So I'm sure you'll find, the path forward on the brand, because the brand is really just a reflection of you. And I think maybe that's where just back to this notion of reinvention, Daniel, what would you your story is really it's quite amazing. I mean, honestly, it's inspiring. It's also, it's scary as hell because of what you went through and that you got out of that. What's the advice you have for people? Like, what do you tell people about people who are afraid of themselves, people who are afraid to try and reinvent themselves, because who are finding themselves in jobs they hate, like you did?
Yeah.
What But they still can't get out of it because hey, we need to make money every day. So what do you tell them?
I think the best advice you could have for any of that is I always say man, God forbid you're at the end of your life and you say, I wish I did this and I wish I did that. You know that you can make a lot of money, but there's one thing you can't buy is time, and you can't buy that time back, and you can't buy uh, your decisions. You can't change any of that. So it's about living life to the fullest and not having any regret. And I think for me, a big thing is no believing in yourself first, and realizing that you have a talent, and if it's not a talent, a gift, or realizing that anything is possible. And then once you realize that, then realize that life's not very long, so you only have a short time to really prove all this stuff to yourself, not to others. Like, why waste it? Don't have regrets.
Do you ever find yourself doubting that though? Do you ever find yourself depressed and going, I don't think I can do this? I mean, you're pushing yourself pretty hard. Do you ever, like, where's the struggle for you?
Oh yeah, I have that feeling all the time. I mean, I can sound positive now. I mean, I have my days like just like anybody else. Sometimes I look at my artwork and I go, is this even really good? Or why are people buying this? Could it be better? Um, I think Instagram is super toxic. I mean, I do it just because, for my work, I kind of have to do it. Seeing other people's art is theirs better. So I mean, you always get this kind of like, am I good enough? And yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to have these, but the difference is snapping out of it by the afternoon, having these thoughts, but not letting them drag out all week. Realizing that, okay, maybe their artwork is, maybe it is better in your eyes. How do you become better? So everything becomes a challenge to myself. It's not about I think even in the pandemic is some people, for me, the idea of it was, okay, you can either roll over and be sad, or you can work even harder at other things. And it's crazy. I've been doing all these other things, and people message me all the time. They're like, "Wow, you're so motivating." I actually started painting, or I'm actually doing this. So I mean, that's the idea for me, is not only to help myself, but maybe motivate other people. That's kind of why I messaged you too, because people were messaging me, and I said, "Well, let's do something. Maybe we can motivate other people to not." I know it's like super. It's super depressing, the unknown of the future. I mean, it's almost a year and a half now of this nonsense. So a lot of people that are questioning their lives and going through depression. So I think that, if you spend that time focusing on different things, maybe use this as an opportunity to do the things you didn't do before. Maybe you're not working. Maybe this is your time to study something, or to do something. If you just sit there and be sad, you're just going to be sad. There's no positive
Yeah.
result out of that.
Yeah, and it is hard. I mean, I think we need to acknowledge just how hard it can be for people who are um, really struggling with what that looks like, and how, if you're if you're stuck in a, a place where you can't imagine life getting better, that's very difficult. And I agree with you that I would, for me, the time has been interesting because I've tried to really focus on my physical health, because I thought, maybe I need to sleep more, and I'm going to do these things. I'm going to try, working out more and doing this stuff. And the impact it's had on me mentally has been significant, because there's days that I just really, I suffer from anxiety, as I have, I have challenges with, trying to just get myself out of my own head. Like, any little thing that happens, I imagine it to be 10 times worse than it actually is. Like, I can talk myself into, the world is ending tomorrow if I want to. And I would say that that's actually the good side and the bad side of the power of our minds. Our minds are so powerful, and we can tell ourselves a story that we start to believe. And the slipping of, going into, because I've suffered from depression as well, the slipping of going there is so easy, and it is hard to get yourself out of that. So this is also a good time to get help and to talk to people and to do what we're doing, to just connect with people. um,
Can I suggest a book for you, for everybody?
yeah.
Going on what you said, I don't know if have you ever read Man's Search for Meaning?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's I think it's probably one of the best books I've ever read. And do you know what it's about?
Well, I can, from the title, I can guess.
No, no, no. It's actually
What's it?
it's about a Jewish psychotherapist who was in the Holocaust, and while it was happening, he talks about his experience there, and it goes on to talk about exactly this, where he says, you know, it wasn't the beatings that he. I mean, one thing that stood out that he said in the book is this: it wasn't the beatings that I got every day. It was to look at these soldiers that would look at someone who barely resembled a human anymore, and they could do this to them. He goes, but the one thing they couldn't take away from me was the positive thoughts in my head. So he finds all these
Wow.
these
Wow.
terrible moments, and it's such a powerful book. These terrible descriptive moments he's talking about, but then he's talking about singing songs in his head and how he just looked for a brighter future, and like it's such an incredible book. So I think
Hmm.
reading this in a time like this, really, it's a motivating book because you go, well, I don't think it gets much worse than what this guy was talking about and the experience he was going through, and the fact that he's become super successful after and still had these positive thoughts. Pretty impressive. So it's a really, really good book to read.
Thanks for that, Rico. I mean, you're exactly right. We can get so hung up in what's being taken away from us that we forget what we still have. We still have so much, and we're not, I mean, the Holocaust, some of the atrocities that have been committed on humanity, in countries around the world, the genocides, Rwanda's, there's so many like horrific things that have happened to mankind, and so we have to kind of put all this in perspective and say, hey, we yes, it's not ideal, but there's still a lot to be thankful for, and to try and get out of our heads of the negative and focus on what can be.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are taking advantage of this from a perspective of the time, like you just said, to think about, what could I invent? What can I do? What can the future look like? How can I play a part in what this world should look like? And I find a lot of people now thinking about reinventing the world. And I love that. I love that people are turning their attention to making this place better.
Yeah, or even finding themselves. I actually message. I check on different people and see how they're doing, and a few people have said, I'm having the time of my life. I'm actually I'm learning things about my kids I didn't understand, and I'm learning things about myself I didn't know, and really understanding what's important to you. So I think to take this moment as a pause even in life, because it goes so fast and there's always so many things to do. Maybe this is like the reset button or the pause that's kind of said like, okay, what's important to me?
Yeah. Well, I think that's super wise, and I think that's great advice to everybody. Like, now's the time to think about what's important to you and focus on that, and be unafraid to challenge yourself to try something different. I mean, Daniel, you really are inspiring. I love following you on Instagram because I always think, man, he's like, that guy is doing everything. He's trying new things, and I love watching you create, because when you're in your studio with the music playing, and I love watching you cook because that your creativity is expressed in your cooking. I love just watching you out and about, because you see things that I can't see, and you are really inspiring. And you have your reinvention from a kid who was homeless, doing drugs, to now is an incredibly motivating story. I really appreciate you sharing it with everybody so openly and honestly. So
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, like we'll talk again. I can't wait to see y'all. You're gonna have to send me your furniture, and I'll see if I can afford it.
Oh man, it's costing so much money. I just hope I do it properly. I want to build a house inside my Art Basel show this year, like a living space with walls, and actually create like a house, and then just
stay tuned for that, everybody, because he will. He says he wants to.
That.
He will.
Thanks,
Daniel.
Okay.
No different than creating art, life is an accumulation of many steps. Every addition, whether it's as small as a brushstroke or as dramatic as adding more colors, brings us closer to the finished product. To that end, you can stress about making a mistake, or know that you can use it to enhance the bigger picture. which is exactly what Daniel did with his life. Knowing he was destined for more, he made impactful changes which pushed him to be in the position he finds himself today. Validation from a stranger purchasing his art gave him the confidence to quit his job and focus on what he loves most, art. Making decisions that help you realize and achieve your purpose will never be efforts you regret. Stay safe and stay human. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This podcast is made possible by the great folks at Venture Communications. Thanks to our engineers, writers, producers, and all the folks who work really hard to bring you these great stories of reinventions each and every week.